People say that God often shows up in unexpected places. Recently, I caught a glimpse of him on a familiar walk on a seemingly typical day. There's this really great path across the street from my work, and on my lunch break I like to walk this path. It goes by a hospital, by a rehab center, and turns around by a local elementary school and comes back. This particular day, I noticed that spring was in full bloom. There was these beautiful, bright pink trees with these big, beautiful pink blossoms. I was captivated by them, and I marched right up to a tree for a closer look. There were many stages of blooming. I felt the bud of one just starting, and I was surprised at how hard it was. It wasn't fragile at all. And then there were others, more open, and their petals seemed to be falling, one by one. And still there were others, in full bloom, on display for all to see. I studied these plants for a few moments, and I realized it was in their nature to grow, to open up, to share their beauty, to nourish the wildlife around them, and eventually to die. This was their purpose, and nothing could stop them from doing it. Even rain or wind could hurt them, but they would still move in that direction. It was why they were created. I was struck by the vulnerability of the flower and how it lays down petal after petal after petal, no longer contained in that hard protective shell. I couldn't help but be struck by how this picture relates to our own lives. How many times have we entered church or entered relationship with God or with other people, only to have a hard protective shell or a mask hiding what's inside of us? Maybe many of us come from a background where you're supposed to put on a smile and pretend everything's okay at church. And how many of us hide our honest thoughts, our dreams, and our hearts from God because we're afraid of what He might do or say, or even worse, that He won't care at all? How many of us are simply afraid? Afraid of what being honest, truly honest with ourselves, with God, or even with others, what that could mean. If you saw all these weaknesses in me, would you judge me? And yet, we're invited, individually and as a community, to embrace our weakness in grace like He has, and cast out all fear in love. In Hebrews it says, "For because Jesus Himself had suffered and been tempted, He is able to help those who are tempted. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, but without sinning." Brennan Manning states, "How paradoxical this mystery is. The strength of the priesthood of all Christ followers lies precisely in and through the weakness of our humanity. Why? Because weakness relates us profoundly to the people that we serve. It allows us to feel with them the human condition. It also provides us the arena in which His power can move and reveal itself. His power is made manifest in weakness. The command and judgment on our lives is that we should love one another as He loved us, as He cared out of His weakness for our weakness. So what would this tree look like if all of its flowers were bound, closed, and tight? It'd be a barren structure, lacking purpose and lacking beauty. What would it look like if each flower opened, blossomed, and shared the authenticity of who or what it was meant to be? It'd be a radiant display that would draw others passing by to its beauty. Even as I was engaging these beautiful blossoms, 2 women stopped by and touched and marveled at the brilliance of them. People are drawn to the beauty of authenticity. But this demands vulnerability. What if there existed many communities who also shared that same message? Where do you fit in this story? Are you like the partially opened flower, being prompted to enter into this place of vulnerability and to not be afraid, that you may be used in His kingdom in a really mighty way. Perhaps you're like the closed, hardened flower, having never spoken to God and, quite frankly, wondering if He even exists or if He cares. No matter where you are in this story, I challenge you to take a risk and believe that there is a greater story happening all around us. It's an invitation, greater than anything that you could ever imagine, rooted in love and created to set us free. It's incredible.